Powered by Sports Interaction, Canada Sportsbook.
Think you know what way it's going to go? Make your bet with Sports Interaction. Whether it's hockey, football, or basketball, Sports Interaction has you covered. Bet pregame, live in play, or on one of our many prop bets. Sports Interaction makes it easy to deposit, play, and cash out. Join now and see all sports betting has to offer. Want to bet? Head to sportsinteraction.com/SDPN. That's sportsinteraction.com/SDPN. 19 plus. Please play responsibly. And just like that, the season is saved. Everything is fine again. Nobody panic. We're fine.
We're all good over here in Sensland.
It's all good. It was the end of the world last game. Everything's back to normal now. I'm sure everything will be wrong again after the Bruins game tomorrow. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Game Over Ottawa, and it is my pleasure to hit for myself anyway, to hit for the first time since the All-Star break, the button. St. Louis Blues, you just got sensed.
Ooh.
That was a good sensing right there. That was a full team effort, which is making me a little nervous because I don't know if I want to point out too many people that looked great, because kind of everyone looked great, and when everyone looks great, like, did anyone really look that great? But
I feel like I have almost no criticisms today. Like, it was just one of those games where everything went the Sens way. I think since it was Star Wars night, I think I'll say that the Force was with them tonight. It was on their side, so it was just I won't say a perfect game, but that was probably one of the best games all season, I'd have to say.
Yeah, and part of me was thinking, oh, okay, well, like, this is a team that just traded away Tarasenko and O'Reilly, but they weren't killing it this year. So, like, they still had their top players, really. I mean, they still had Buchnevich, Thomas, Kyrou, Shen. Like, they still had the guys that were actually performing. So, I guess slight asterisk without Tarasenko and O'Reilly now, but also, like,
I guess it's not like they were carrying them though this year.
No, not at all. Speaking of that, though, actually, I guess Buchnevich came out of the game and didn't return. So
yeah, he wasn't playing.
And I don't know if they've just like outright said that they're not trading him, but I kind of think that'd be a huge, if you're tearing things down, that kind of seems like a great piece to move. He's on an incredible contract for the next 2 years, I believe. So I'm surprised that there's been no talk of that, because he's definitely older than Kyrou and Thomas, and you'd think they're just going to kind of hold on to those guys going forward.
Yeah, I'm actually, now that you mentioned, I'm just checking what his contract is. Yeah, 2 more years at 5.8. You have everyone fiending over Timo Meier, and he's not quite as good as him, but that would be a hot name on the trade market if they decided to deal him with 2 years left at a pretty reasonable price. That's a good point. It would be interesting. They would probably get a complete haul back for him if they traded him with term.
Yeah, they're probably looking at more of like probably like they're eyeing like a quicker retool, I guess. They probably don't want to strip it down completely, but anyway, I'm just looking through the roster. I was like, that's yet a lot in return for him. But yeah, I guess we'll start the show off with what happened before the game. The first trade by the Sens. I guess deadline-ish deal. We're still a little ways out, a couple weeks out, but worth talking about. So not the mid-round pick we assumed it was going to be flat out, but what did you think of the Tyler Mott trade?
So I'm gonna complain slightly, but only slightly, because it's really not that big of a deal overall. Is just because when it was tweeted out originally that he was going to be scratched, you had some people expecting like a mid-round pick for him, and I believe it was Larry Brooks, who reports for the Rangers, saying that, oh, the Sens want more than a 4th-round pick, which is kind of a high price, and that might be an obstacle or whatever. And I was like, oh, wow, would maybe get a decent pick for a guy that we just scooped up in free agency. And then it ends up being a conditional 7th and just a body for the 4th line. So I think I kind of would have been happier with more around like a 4th or 5th round pick, but it's not such a big trade that I can really complain too much. What about you?
Yeah, I don't know. I love the label of higher picks, I guess, but like, really, what's the difference between a 4th and a conditional 7th at the end of the day? At the very least, I guess with Gauthier, they see him as, if nothing else, speed. And I don't know. I don't know what the plan is for him if they're just like the only problem with the fourth line is they're not fast enough. So maybe that's the fix. I don't know, but um I don't know. Like there is something about the like it being I don't know when it's a conditional seventh. Like I don't really know how much use that pick has in the trade. It's probably they just wanted to swap to like a younger player probably I guess
Hmm.
cheaper, but yeah, I don't know. I don't. This is going to be a trade that both fan bases forget about within 6 months. Like, just never think about
Yeah.
again, probably, unless Mott goes on to have an incredible playoff run, which would be cool for him. And I kind of hope that the Rangers go quite a ways into the playoffs because they are a really fun team. So, be fun to see where he fits into the lineup. But yeah, weird
I do
condition
think,
as
yeah, I
well.
think it's very funny that they bothered to negotiate those conditions into the trade because it's like from a Rangers perspective, okay, so it's if they win a round, then the pick will become one round better in the draft. And it's like if you're the Rangers and you lose in the first round, what the hell do you care that you gave up a sixth instead of a seventh, right?
Yeah.
Like why would you bother to put that into the trade? It's just so weird to me.
I would love to know whose idea it was, like which side, because there's a weird. It's weird no matter whose idea it was, right? Like I don't. It's just like what's the 30 spots up? Like instead of picking 200th, you're picking 170th. Like is there really gonna be? I don't know. I'm not sure
Hmm.
about that one,
It's
but
bizarre.
it's a weird, yeah, definitely a weird condition. Um, yeah, but
The other
it's
thing
trade
that I
season.
wanted to, the other thing I wanted to say about the trade is that no offense to Goche or anything, and I hope that he does well for us, but I was kind of hoping to just see the trade be Mott for a pick with no one coming back, just because I want to see someone called up from Belleville for the bottom six, like
We
Sokolov or Cruikshank.
Yeah.
So I was a little bit disappointed that we were getting a body back and we're just going to be playing him instead of another potential call up. But maybe if Austin Watson gets moved as well, then hopefully we'll see one of those guys at that point.
You know what's gonna happen is the first guy called up is gonna be Castellic. That's just how it's. That's just
Oh, I forgot he was down there.
that
That's right.
is like it. It's just gonna be a loop for the rest of this season, and I'm really hoping that by some miracle, that yeah, guys like Sokolov and Cruikshank can fight for a spot next spring. Next spring. I'm in baseball mode, by the way. Spring training. I was gonna say next fall, next training camp, but God, I don't know. Like, I mean, I also have like I don't know. I mean, I have like sends blinders on all the time. Like, I'm not really paying attention to transactions as far as like who teams are calling up, and I don't really necessarily have a team to compare this to, but it feels like the Sens notoriously just don't call up young players mid-season. Like, if they do, it's going to be someone tearing it up in college, and they'll come in at the end of the season or something. But like, it just feels like, and I mean, I don't know, maybe there's a lot of one-way contracts and that's the issue there, but it just never feels like, it feels like if they do call someone up, it's the 30-year-old scoring well below the young guys in the
Hmm.
minors. So I'm not sure if that's just entirely in my head or not.
I do like the practice of letting the prospects cook in the minors for a little
Hmm.
longer. However, with a guy like Sokolov, I kind of feel like he's been cooking down there for long enough to the point that he passed Drake Batherson in career points for the Belleville Senators,
Yeah.
leads the franchise in points now, which is it. I think it was like somewhere like over 100 points at this point now. So he's been down there for a while, and I'd really like to see him get a shot at some point for the rest of the season because I want to see if his skating has improved because I think that's like the number one thing holding him back, like in his last call up last year.
Hmm.
I feel like a guy like him, he's probably been down there long enough that I'd like to see him called up. But
Yeah,
maybe
yeah.
some other guys like Cruikshank and Yarventi, they could probably use a little bit more time. But I also wouldn't mind seeing them get a few games here and there too.
Yeah, because Sokolov at this point, he's on his what, third really good year in the AHL. So at this point,
Yep.
just do it. Like, just absolutely, just should finally go. He's earned more than 8 games, honestly. At this point, like
Hmm.
that's pretty rough. Um, I guess we'll talk about this game.
Yeah,
I'm
lots to talk
usually
about
I
from this one.
usually push the talking of the game back as far as I can, and I guess I was kind of doing that this episode anyway, forgetting the fact that this is gonna be a fun one to talk about. Um, Tim Stutzle is incredible. I'll
Oh my
start
God.
there. Like,
I,
oh
I'm
my
gonna
god.
I'm gonna go with what you texted me during the game, that you said to a friend that you think Stutzle is already the Sens' best player ever, which I think I almost agree. Like maybe not quite, but let everyone know your case for that.
I think purely in like okay, look at like one season of work maybe, or because I can't say he's the best Sens player ever. Look at his resume, like it just doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
But as far as just if you just look at one player as like what they are, um he is, I don't think I've ever been able to look at a Sens player and see like in like such two-way dominance,
Mm-hmm.
because he just looks so good. And every single time I'm like, oh, he looked good defensively again tonight. Like, that's gonna run out eventually, just because like I can't let myself enjoy things and assume that a superstar level player will remain a superstar level player. But like like he looked like, first of all, like an incredible offensive game from him in this one, just dominating the whole way through. But like I kept seeing him make great plays defensively, and I genuinely don't know if I've ever been able to watch anyone with a Sens jersey play that well on both ends of the ice so consistently and legit. Yeah, like I said, like elite on both sides. And
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the thing. Like a guy who's going to score 90. Honestly, like at this point, I think that everyone should expect him to be okay. Well, okay. I need to back up a bit. But like, is anyone going to be surprised if following this season, every full season he plays, he's good for 40 goals, 100 points? Like, I don't think anyone's going to be shocked if that's the player he turns out to be all the time. So to
Mm-hmm.
have that, um, if the Sens finally have their consistent 100-point guy, who they've really never had ever outside of a couple seasons here and there, mid 2000s, mostly looking at that. Um, so probably offensively their strongest player ever, but to also be that strong defensively, I'm just like, and maybe I am jumping the gun a little bit. Maybe I should be saving that for maybe a couple years down the road. But I I think he has a case right now. Maybe not the strongest, but I do think he has a case right now. If not to be right now, at least his potential and honestly maybe even his floor is arguably the best player to ever play for the Ottawa Senators.
Yeah, I totally agree with you on 2 points there. First, speaking of like the two-way game and the all-around play, like factoring in not just the defensive play but also the offensive ceiling, he's the best since Alfredson, like not even close, right? And you could argue that his offensive production is going to be better than Alfredson's was for a lot of his career, at least more consistent, because Alfredson had some amazing years with the
Oh
pizza
yeah.
line, but then other than that, he was more kind of like consistent, like 70-point guy, kind of outside of those pizza line years. Whereas Stutzle is already on a 90-point pace in his third season in the league, like still on his entry-level contract. Thank God we got him extended already. And then other than Alfredson, in terms of two-way play from forwards over the years for the Sens, like then the next closest is Mark Stone. And obviously no one's going to match up to his defensive ability, but
Right.
Stone kind of, or Stutzle kind of blows Stone out of the water in terms of offensive talent at this point, I have to say. And then the only other guys I can think of as like really great two-way forwards for the Sens is like Pajot and Mike Fisher. And then those guys obviously are not even in consideration in terms of like the offensive side of the game.
Mm-hmm.
So he's the best forward since Alfredson. He's going to be. He could, you can't really, I feel like it's sacrilege to say that anyone else could pass Alfredson's legacy, but in terms of point totals, I think Stutzle will pass him at some point over his long career.
I specifically was looking at the all-time scoring leaders for the Sens because they've been talking about that so much with Tkachuk, and how Tkachuk is the youngest Ottawa Senator to ever hit 250 points, which is pretty wild considering how he was an older drafted player. Like he was 19 for most of his rookie season.
Yeah.
So that's really cool. And he also passed Chris Neal in this game on the all-time scoring list. So he is now 15th, funny. I believe 15th. I should probably double check those numbers. But what's wild to me is that now after this game, so I was just thinking like, so yeah, this I was talking to my buddy Matt, who's been a guest on here a couple times, and he mentioned how the Sens are just such a young organization that looking at that list of all-time scores, it's weird. There's only 3 players for the Ottawa Senators who have ever cracked 500 points.
Hmm.
So it's such a young organization and franchise. And yeah, so Brady's at 15th. And so whenever you picture someone who you feel like, oh, that guy played for the Sens forever or like a very long stretch of time, Kachuk's now only 22 points behind Turris.
Oh my god. Yeah, and Turris was their first line center for like 8 years.
Right? So it's wild. So I don't know what it is. Either I am imagining that those other guys played for longer than they did, or Brady Kachuk is still a rookie in my brain. I have a tough
Hmm.
time, I think, also just with how long Kachuk's been playing now.
In
Um,
terms of the top three guys who are over 500, obviously Alfredson and Spezza. Is it Carlson? Like, did he
it
break
is.
500 with the Sens? Okay.
Yeah.
I figured it would be around 500, but I wasn't sure if it was quite over 500. What's his
Yeah.
number?
518.
Okay, there we go. That
Yeah.
makes sense. Yeah.
And then Yashin's the closest outside of there at 491. But then
Hmm.
it drops off to Wade Redden in fifth at 410. So it's, and I think you're right. Alfie's 1108 points might like that being the leader on the in franchise history is it honestly might be at risk, which is
It's in
wild to
jeopardy.
say.
Yeah, over
Which
the
is
next couple of years.
oh, that's so exciting. That's so
I want
exciting.
to shout out Kyle in the chat as well, who points out that Stutzle is top 5 in points scored since the new year in the whole league. So it's not just these players like climbing the Sens rankings as well. You can
Mhm.
see that it's like actually top production throughout the whole league among centers. Like I had bookmarked a tweet here, like the most points since January 1st. You have Matthew Tkachuk, Nathan McKinnon, Connor McDavid, Jack Hughes, and then Tim Stutzle is tied with Jack
Wow.
Hughes. So that's elite company. So it's not just being amazing for being on the Sens, with our standards. It's he's amazing for the whole league.
I think that's such an important distinction that you just made. Sens fans can be really excited about anyone who looks like they're NHL caliber. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I think also just in the last 5 years or so, like I think the fan base has kind of forgotten what it's like to have a superstar player. Um,
Hmm.
I watch Tim Stutzle. I'm like, I don't know what to do with my hands. I just like sit here and I feel so out of place. Like, why is he wearing an Ottawa Senators jersey? This player that looks so good. Um, yeah, and I think that is such an important distinction that you made. Like
Okay,
a
hold
star
on.
for the Sens versus league wide.
With what you just said, I just wanted to just cut in and say watching Tim Stutzle feels like playing NHL Be a Pro and you're the Sens first line center and you're just like blowing everyone out of the
You're
water.
on
That's what
rookie
watching
mode.
Tim Stutzle feels like. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
I'm so mad he didn't score in overtime against the Blackhawks last game. Like
Oh, he had like 5 shots in that overtime.
that shift was unreal, and yeah, he's all over the place. So I guess okay. So if we were to, because this is just going to turn into a half hour of us talking about Tim Stutzle. If
Yep.
you were to, so I think without a doubt, first start of the game, if you were to shift the focus on someone else, who do you think would come in number two for this game? Who's someone that is also worth putting the spotlight on and giving some love?
So this might be kind of a bad answer because it's not really picking one player, but I have to say you can pick whoever you want out of Batherson, DeBrincat, and Pinto because they were great as a line today. Like that was a line that had actually played a lot of games together earlier in the year and was really up and down, had some really dry stretches, but some good games as well.
Mm-hmm.
So I think some people were skeptical that DJ went back to that line combination this game, but they blew it out of the water here today. Like Pinto had that amazing goal with the Batherson assist that was just out of this world. Like
Honestly, half the assists were nuts.
Beautiful goals tonight. Seriously,
Yeah.
every goal.
Batherson's pass, Stutzler's pass, DeBrincat's pass, like just
even Zub's pass to Stutzle on
Yeah.
on his second goal.
Yeah. Also, shout out Eric Brandstrom with another point.
You know what? Okay, so I kind of gave my answer already, but if we're gonna say one of those three guys as like the second star, Eric Brandstrom third star. I have to say that.
There you go. Love it. Love it. He's a new player since being engaged. He has what 3 or 4 points in the last 5 games. Like with like 2 posts hit, I think.
Yeah,
Completely
that Edmonton
different.
game I was at, I was so like or no, was it the Calgary game where he hit 2 posts?
It was the Calgary
He
game, I think,
scored,
yeah.
yeah, he scored at the Edmonton game, and I was watching that from the 300 level, and when he skated in and sniped that, I literally thought it was Stutzle until after he scored, and he turned his back, and I saw number 26. Like, he looked amazing flying in on that goal, and then you could just see the confidence in that next game against Calgary, where he was jumping up into the rush and hit the post twice. And now, like you said, I think it's 4 points in the last 5 games for him. He's just been great with that increased ice time.
Yeah, I think it was. I don't remember what the ice time totals were by the end of the game, but I think by the second intermission against Chicago, he was second in ice time for defensemen, which was nuts. Let me
Mhm.
just double check this because I do want to compare
Today,
that.
today, him and Shabbat were almost the same. 23:04 for Bresham and 23:23 for Shabbat.
Yeah, Brasham played 25 minutes against Chicago. Yeah,
Oh
Chabot was
wow.
26. He's looking good.
hmm
He's really looking good.
I
Um,
think the main thing about him not having any production so far this season, at this point, I think it's just proof that it's because with his limited ice time on the third pair, he's only ever out there with the bottom six, and they don't fucking score ever.
yeah,
So now that he's actually on the ice at 5-on-5 with our top six lines, now he gets points, which is
right.
pretty funny.
And the fourth line, like, I'm sorry, I know we said like everyone looked great. The fourth line had its moments in this game as well. Like really,
Yeah.
really, sometimes looking okay, sometimes and sometimes you're Austin Watson taking a stupid offensive zone penalty. Like
hmm
that's yeah. I don't know how I
I
feel
hope
about that one.
hope GMs who are looking to trade for him didn't watch today and see that penalty.
Yeah, at the very least, St. Louis did even that up with the instigation penalty after that, uh, which
That
was
was a
a
weird
relief.
call.
Yeah. Also, I think an underrated thing about the St. Louis Blues is that Jordan Binnington was on the bench and they still had a more hateable goalie in net.
Oh my god, yeah.
Are you
I didn't
kidding?
know about any of this until looking on Twitter today.
Oh, you didn't know that Grice
Thomas
sucks?
Thomas Greiss not a good guy apparently. Yeah,
No,
I didn't know
fucking
about any of this.
Germany was like, we don't want you in the 2021 IIHF, like in the for the World Championships.
Mhm.
Germany was like, no, we don't want you on our team. Like it's
Yeah,
that bad.
he's banned. They're
Yeah.
not going to call him up ever again.
So pretty wild that one team can have both those goalies.
Yeah, the most unlikable goalie tandem in the league, I guess.
I,
Did you see
it's not close either. Like I can't even. I'm trying to like think of like who could even fight for that title, and I honestly like no one's even in the same division. Like it's a different level completely.
Did you see the old picture of his goalie mask?
Oh yeah, yeah, with his name across the
Yeah,
chin.
how did that get passed? Like, how did that get approved to for him to be able to play with that? That's just
Like
insane.
to an extent, I can accept some ignorance on behalf of anyone else if he claims ignorance on the design and the font. The fact that like listen, there's two specific. There's the fact that they're in a completely different font from the rest of his name. First of all,
hmm
number one, and second, you can't. He's fucking German. He can't
Yeah,
claim ignorance
exactly.
on that. Like just all that to say, somehow Jordan Binnington is by far the most likable goalie on that team, and I think that is
That's
absolutely
shocking.
fucking wild that that's even
Yep.
possible. So great to see him get absolutely blown up this game.
hmm Yeah, very happy about that. And also, we got to talk about really Greg getting his first
Oh
NHL goal.
yeah, yes, for the touchdown.
hmm
So I do. So during this game, I don't know how you feel about this. But this is like a really, I don't know, like not like a selfish thought I had, but I was like, I hope he doesn't score his first goal in this game because I want him. In my brain, I was like, I want it to be like a game winner or something. Like
Oh yeah, like a
I
big
don't
goal.
know. He probably doesn't give a shit. He scored his first NHL goal. He's probably psyched regardless. But in my brain, I'm like I want that movie like game-winning goal, huge moment. I mean, he's going to score
hmm
game-winning goals in his career, so it's probably stupid for me to be like, no, no, he can score it later. But like, I mean, I was psyched when he scored the goal, but during the game, I was like, if everyone's scoring and he does too, like, it just feels like It's like Tim Stutzle's hat trick against Seattle. In my brain, I'm like, it doesn't
Uh-huh.
count though, you know. So it's I don't know. How do
Hey,
you
at
feel
least
about that? I don't
at
know if
least it
I'm
was in
just
a at least it was in a blowout win instead of a blowout
yeah.
loss
There
like the
you go.
Stützle hat trick.
Yeah,
But yeah, I do have to say it was probably the most subdued first NHL goal celebration ever, just because it made it 7-2, and you don't want to showboat on the other team at that point. So you could tell Greg was dialing it back. And I would
right.
bet that if his second career goal ends up being like at a big moment in a game, or even just at any point in a close
Right.
game, he's gonna sell you way harder.
Oh yeah. That. You know what? That's probably that's something we should look out for
Mm-hmm.
specifically. See that first goal, Sally on the second goal.
I was a little annoyed too because I actually walked out of the room when he scored that goal. I was
Oh,
like, "There's 2 minutes left in the game. I gotta start getting ready for the stream. Let me go get my headset." And then he scores right as soon as I walk away. I had to run back down the stairs and see the replay. So that bothered me a little bit, but we're very happy for Greg.
yeah.
Awesome moment for him.
Great goal by the one and only Ridley Scott. Was that his first
Oh my
game that
god.
that happened? I think that was his first game.
Yeah, it was. I'm trying to remember who it was against. I think it's either against the Leafs or the Habs. I think it was that Leafs game. It was just they said Ridley Scott every
Yeah.
freaking time.
Oh well.
The commentators will learn his name. He
Oh
will
yeah.
make himself known.
I ever since I first heard this, when he was drafted, because underrated thing to mention that I think a lot of people are forgetting is that that was the Pajot pick that turned
Yes.
into Ridley Gregg, who might turn into a very Pajot like player, third line
Hmm.
center, got some bite to him. I want to see. Like, I mean, well, I think just like everyone else, I'm mostly dying to see playoff Kachuk, but playoff Greg sounds like it'd be a
Hmm.
lot of fun too.
I'm glad that we're able to ease him into the lineup now when it's not like
Yeah,
super high stakes, but kind of important games too. So he can get settled, but it's not completely meaningless hockey at the same time too. So hopefully next year, fingers crossed. I'll say when we make the playoffs, not if, but when we make the playoffs, he'll be a beast.
so with Norris in the lineup, who are you moving between him and Pinto to a wing, or do you just stick him on the fourth
That's the
line?
issue. Oh, I mean, here's the thing. I think you could start Greg on the fourth line
Mm-hmm.
for next year, just if he's not like lighting the world on fire in terms of point scoring at the end of this season, because he's fit in really well, but and like done good as a stopgap on that second line, but then he's gotten moved down to the bottom six now. I don't think he's going to be putting up a lot of points, but he obviously fits in at the NHL level.
For sure.
So I think it would be more likely that Pinto stays as the 3C and you could start Greg on the fourth line, but it's also equally as likely that Greg starts putting up some more points, ends up back on the second line, and then
Mm-hmm.
maybe we have that issue again. What do you think?
I'm not sure because I think I've been thinking this for a while now, and it sounds. I was like, I'm gonna talk about this on the show now because I'm like, you know what? I've decided I like this idea and I want the Sens to do it. And of course, it's me saying they should trade Batherson, and he had a great game because I mean,
Yeah.
to be fair, he's been so rough this year. Like he's scoring, sure, but like he's just looked so rough so many times
Yo,
this season.
that turnover on the first goal of the game against Chicago.
Oh,
What the hell was that? Just threw it
oh,
back in his own zone, and there wasn't a Sens player in sight.
there's so
But
much
you
of
you
that.
get those moments from him,
It's so
which
much
makes
of
it
that
it
this
makes it
season.
rough.
And I am 100% on team plus minus is stupid. Plus minus is a terrible stat and should never be used. So the fact that his plus minus is bad enough for me to say, hey, his plus minus sucks. He's minus 27
Yeah,
in 54
way
games.
worse than anyone else.
It's just, I mean, that's clearly like, obviously you're going to be a minus on a team that's outside the playoffs, but that is just brutal. Anyway, I think the move is because let's be real. A lot of GMs are just going to look at his production and look at his contract, and his dollar to point ratio is very very good because he's still on that. I think
Hmm.
it's under 500, isn't it? Or not 500, under 5 mil. It's like high
Yeah, it's
fours.
like 4.9 or something.
Yeah. So I don't remember how many years left. 2 years left on that, maybe. Anyway, I think
It's
you
longer than that. It's like 5 years.
is it another?
It
Is
was
it
a
how long was
it
his
was a
deal when
six,
it was
it was a
signed?
6 year deal. Let
60
me
deal.
here.
Okay, so maybe there's
I'll
like
get
three
this real
years left.
quick.
Anyway, I think
Uh,
the move is if you can make a package for a defenseman with Batherson.
Yeah.
And I know everyone was looking at that top six coming into the season like it's perfect, leave it the way it is. but my God, the defense needs help. And honestly, between Pinto and now I got all the confidence in the world in Greg to if you need to move Pinto up to the second line and then Greg becomes a third line, like I honestly I'm fine with it. I have all the confidence in the world in those guys, so I think it honestly purely from like a money perspective. And also because he's kind of sucked a lot of this season. But as far as the contracts go, the easiest one to move is Batherson. Like that goes without a doubt. It's the easiest one to move. So I think you could maybe find a deal somewhere, move Batherson for a top 4 caliber defenseman.
I got the details. It's 4 years left and it's 4,975,000. So it's just under 5 million for 4 more years. So GMs will like that, as you said, for the cost per point.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, if we keep him, it's perfectly fine in terms of that cost per point, but he's got to pick up the defensive play if he sticks around. And so I could definitely see him getting moved for just a defenseman, especially if we end up drafting a forward in this year's draft, because here's the thing, we really need help on defense, but we need help on defense now. So if we draft like a right defenseman, we're not going to be wanting to wait like 3 or 4 years for that guy to be ready as a rookie. I think it would be, to be honest, just more likely that we would draft a forward this year because we're going to need more guys coming up on ELCs to play behind our big contract guys on offense. So I could definitely see that being the case.
I don't know what your opinion on this is, but I am like, I hate drafting for positional need. I hate it. Draft the best player available every time, because guess what? When that player you drafted turns out to be better, if you need a defenseman and you grab that forward who's incredible, you know what you do? You trade that forward for a defenseman better than the guy you were going to draft at defense anyway, right? So I think, just I hate. I think it's probably a little different in other sports where the positions are a little bit more. I want to say like black and white, but in hockey, like you can kind of convert wingers to centers to wingers, and then defense you can kind of flip sides, whatever. There's really only like 3 positions, I guess, outside goalie, kind of, between winger, center, and D. So I guess I understand why like football teams will be like drafting for a position lead, I guess, but yeah, I think. Okay, so here's the question: what if the Sens try and recreate like a DeBrincat trade for a defenseman, trading an early first round pick again?
You know, I would be here for it. Like,
I love that answer. I love that answer.
Yeah. I basically just said my opinion on what they might do with the pick if they keep it. But obviously, depending on who they trade it for, I'd be totally fine with moving another pick, especially like after the lottery where we know exactly where it stands, especially if it's between the 10 and 15 range. I haven't done too much research on this year's draft yet because I'm trying to prolong the playoff hopes as long as possible, because it's always depressing for the Sens just looking at the draft rankings in November when we're already out of it. So I've tried to delay that a little bit more this year. So I'm not too educated on who will be available in our spot, but if we could get a top 4D, especially a right-hand D for that pick, go for it.
I love that answer. Go for at this point, At this point, I'm completely with you. Recreate the DeBrincat trade if you have to for a defenseman. You know, if it's like a mid-round pick instead of a top 10, maybe do what I said earlier. Maybe you put 15th overall or so with Drake Batherson, and then you try and, make that move. Granted, it's going to have to be a team who wants to move a defenseman and get a capable enough forward. Like, you can't be going for a team that's going to trying to blow it all up because they're not going to want to take Batherson, probably.
Yeah.
So it's going to have to be a really specific team to make that trade. But yeah, Sens win. We love it.
Woo.
Hell yeah, that was a good one. Any closing thoughts you have before we wrap things up here?
Well, 5 points out of the playoffs now, with a bunch of games in hand, which is awesome. At least on the Islanders, Washington, and Florida, not on Pittsburgh. However, Boston and Carolina coming up next, I'm very scared for that. I feel like we might get a bit of a reality check, especially tomorrow, because the Bruins just absolutely destroyed the Islanders yesterday. So they're in good form right now. Quick question for you. Do you think they'll go back to Sogard tomorrow, or do you think they put Mandolisi against the best team in the league?
I don't know if they want to hit a rookie with back-to-backs.
Yeah.
I don't know what choice I'd make, but I think they go with Kevin.
Yeah, I think they will too, but I think it's a really tough choice either way.
Yeah. Either
Also,
way, it's gonna be a rough game.
Last thing, Audie James in the chat saying, "Are the Sens in session?" I'm thinking they are.
100% Sens are in session. Ask us
Sens are
again in
back.
24 hours. We might have a different answer for you.
Yeah.
But
For
hey,
now, today they're in session.
the Sens beat the Bruins twice this season, so
Somehow.
who knows?
Maybe
Who knows
we
what
just have that
happens?
magic against them. We're their Achilles heel, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, I think every championship caliber team has always had a problem with a not so good team each season. Like, there's always been that one team. So, if the Sens can't make the playoffs, let's at least be the team that ruins Bruins fans' moods every so often. I'm okay with that. All right, folks. Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of Game Over Ottawa. I don't know how many other Canadian teams are playing. I should have checked that, but there's probably going to be a couple other streams today.
Toronto's got a show tonight.
Toronto. All right. Well, make sure to tune in to Game Over Toronto later on today. Like the stream, subscribe to the channel, and we will see you next time.
Have a good night, everyone.
Game over! Powered by Sports Interaction, Canada Sportsbook.